Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Agony Art. So, because last week's episode was really short and I got some feedback that as much as nobody wants them to be super long, they don't want them to be super short either. So, the Am I the Asshole story that we'll be reading this week it's really short, to the point. So I thought we should throw in a petty revenge story at the end as well. Just because, who doesn't like a little bit of pettiness? And I think I've got a good story for you. So, yeah, let's get into today's Am I the Asshole? And then we'll finish off with some petty revenge. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Alrighty, so here's the episode. Here's the question of the week. Am I the asshole for canceling a trip because my fiance's ex and her baby are coming? Now, I, female 32, have been with Kyle, male 37, for 2.5 years. We got engaged 6 months ago. Kyle has been divorced for over 5 years. He was married to Elena, 37, female, and they have a son, Grayson, male 8. Elena has a toddler from a guy she met after her divorce and dated briefly, Ella, 2.5-year-old female. Grayson is a wonderful little kid. He has his room in our house and he is so loved by all of us. Kyle and Elena are good friends and co-parenting great. The problem I have is she is everywhere. Besides the holidays and birthdays, which I understand, Christmas, Grayson's birthday, Thanksgiving, Elena and her baby are pretty much invited to any family function, such as Kyle's birthday, Kyle's parents' anniversary, my birthday. Yes, Kyle invited her to my birthday, our camping trips. I have talked to Kyle many times, but he thinks I'm being insecure for no reason and making a big deal out of nothing. I booked a trip to Mexico for January. Me, Kyle, and Grayson would go on the trip. Kyle told Elena that on the last week of January, we will have Grayson for an extra week since he is coming with us to Mexico. Apparently, Elena managed to ask him about our trip dates, details, and so on. I saw on Facebook she was posting about swimsuit shopping for her upcoming trip, and Kyle texted her asking if she was going somewhere. She said that she researched our hotel and took advantage of the same deal that we took advantage of. She then says, quote, "So I guess we will see you there," end quote. I told Kyle that we have to cancel the trip, and he said that we couldn't because the tickets were non-refundable. I told him that I'm not going. I want for once to have a family vacation without his ex-wife. Kyle thinks there's nothing we can do now. We need to address this for future plans and be more clear about boundaries. Damn, diddy, damn, damn, damn. That's the end of it. Kort en bondag. Nice, short, sweet, and this is why we have the petty revenge coming up later. Now back to this, am I the asshole? Girl, low-key, this is why I don't date people with kids. Because the level of gaslighting that can take place in the name of this child that now exists, and you don't want to be the asshole, right? You don't want to be an asshole and pull a child away from their father, right? You don't want to be an asshole and say that, this man can't see their child, or that they can't have, their child involved in their special events, or just involved in their life in general. And now that you're a part of their life, then it means that, and it becomes a slippery slope. it really does become a slippery slope, because for me, I think it is absolutely wild that homegirl is even coming to your birthday party. Like, hello? How does that make sense in any way, shape, or form? But, if the ex-wife has primary custody of the child, then maybe she needed to come along to bring the child, and then she might as well stick around because she's going to leave with the child, and you just want the child to attend the function. Like, we can make stories here. And yeah, unfortunately, you don't have complete control over that dynamic, right? That the two parents involved in this situation, they're the ones that set the boundaries. They're the ones that have to sort of decide what is and isn't permissible. And you and your discomfort is something that you have to have mediated through your partner, right? And then it becomes the situation, like you're saying, with your partner now, right? Or Home Slice's partner now, where he doesn't think it's that big of a deal. And now he's accusing her of being insecure. And I'm like, is she really being insecure, though? I don't think she is. I can understand wanting to have something of your own, because then when are you, like, low-key, I'm starting to think that maybe homegirl was there at the proposal as well. You know what I mean? But then also, if you've only been engaged for 6 months, surely this must have been a problem long before you got engaged. And you said yes anyway. Do you get what I mean? So also, why are you saying yes to someone who is so entangled with their ex? Because I definitely agree with Home Slice. This is a bit too much. It is a bit too much. Like, why did you guys get divorced in the first place if you clearly don't mind having her around? Because the child and her don't come as a package deal. You can have your child attend things without having her present. And the fact that she's dragging along the small Yana baby with her, that can also be really irritating, because nobody wants to really be dealing with little kids like that all the time. And as much as I work with kids and I love kids, I do also understand wanting, a child-free space, or not wanting to have to consider the needs of like a toddler when you're trying to celebrate your own day, especially when it's not your child. Like, you've made the active choice, or for whatever reason, your life has led you to this point of being childless, or your life has led you to this point where you can now celebrate a birthday party without having to deal with a toddler. So you want the opportunity to be able to opt out of these things, right? You want to be able to do things and have a choice in who is there, right? But then now, in the name of this child, you now don't have control, or you don't have a say in how you spend your time and who you spend your time with, because now there's Elena and this baby that's coming everywhere. Do you get what I mean? So, I don't know. I do find it a bit funny that you've agreed to marry this person, but there's like this big eyesore that's happening, because this is going to be the rest of your marriage. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't address this, it's going to be the rest of your marriage. Or if this issue for Home Slice, if this issue isn't that big, right? It's not something that, it's not a deal breaker for them. You know what I mean? That they considered this situation with the ex, and it wasn't a big enough issue for them to, not want to move forward with their current partner. Then that's also something you need to consider, that like, this is an irritation that you can clearly live with. You know what I mean? So if nothing changes, because you don't have any control in this situation, the only option you have is to leave. That's literally the only way that you can opt out of this situation, because you don't have a say in how they choose to co-parent, right? And the needs of the child will always come first. Always come first. And unfortunately, They are the ones who decide what the child needs, not you. And you and your comfort, you and your preferences come last when it comes to the needs of the child. Now, you might have a different opinion on what the child might need, right? And you think like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? The child doesn't need their mother all the time. They can survive just fine without me or without you. And we have a room for them here in the house. I'll be here to help, and support. Like, the dad is not alone with the child or anything, so like, don't stress. You can say all of those things and you can offer all those things as solutions, but at the end of the day, you don't have any control over how they choose to conduct themselves as parents. And you can set certain boundaries, but then you have to stand by those boundaries, and there need to be real consequences to those boundaries being crossed. Do you get what I mean? So like, are you willing? And I guess this also goes back to the engagement thing, because that's the thing that's honestly baffling me the most here. Why did you say yes when you know that homegirl's gonna be at the wedding, homegirl's gonna be part of the bridal party, homegirl's gonna be everywhere, at the cake tasting, at the announcement of the engagement, at the dinner beforehand? She's gonna be sitting right there at the table in the front. She's also gonna come wearing white. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that this homegirl's like that spiteful, but like, also, why not let bitches just live their own life? Why doesn't she have her own life? Why can't she just do her own thing? And I find it quite odd, you know what I mean, that she's having a baby around the same time this guy, she's having a baby around the same time her ex is, meeting and getting serious with someone else. It seems like she, you know what I mean? I don't know. Now I'm starting to get into conspiracy theory territory, but it seems like homegirl hasn't completely moved on from Home Slice. And I don't know if Home Slice has completely let go of homegirl. That the two of them might still be attached to each other beyond, the needs of the child. They might, still have feelings for each other in some way or another. Because also, why doesn't he want space from her as well? To be like, bitch, I don't need you at it's my parents' party, not your parents' party. Yes, we were married for some time, and yes, our lives were, intertwined at some point, but like, drop off a gift or something if, you guys were that close. But we don't need you there at the celebration. Like, you're part of my past, not my future. Do you feel me? So the fact that he doesn't see a problem with her being every fucking where, that's also a red flag for me. And again, you said yes to this person. So it's either in the moment of saying yes, you weren't thinking clearly, which, I mean, it happens, or you didn't think that this thing was a big deal. You thought it would go away. You thought that by him, saying that he wanted to marry you, that he would maybe change his behavior or whatever. Either way, this is going to be your life for a long time. And again, I'm saying, this is why I don't deal with people who have kids. I don't want to cross them out completely, you know what I mean? But what I am saying is just, yeah, I don't want to have to deal with this. And also another thing is, when you do have these like sort of activities, you either always have to include the child, which then means that it's not going to be the sort of like activity, or not going to be the sort of holiday that you had in mind or wanted. Or the child is left behind with the parent, but then I would feel guilty about stealing quality time away from the child, especially if the person I'm with isn't the primary caregiver. You know what I mean? So for me also, dating people with kids is like a tricky situation, because I don't have a child. So it's not like, you know what I mean, we're both dealing with our kids and we come together when we're free, or we bring our kids together, and that there's this mutual understanding. Instead, like, I'll be the one who has more sort of, I will have to be the one to sort of fix my life to fit into this already existing template that can't really be broken. You know what I mean? Can be bent maybe a little, can nudge a few things aside, but at the end of the day, there's fixed features here that I cannot change. And do I really want to be dealing with all of that if this is a possibility, right? So, anyway, homegirl, speak up for yourself. And really, I think the question for this writer, right, for the person who wrote in the story, the real question is, if none of this changes, right, considering that you are engaged to be married, if none of this changes, because you can't always make someone change, you can't make anyone do anything. So if none of this changes, would you still be happy continuing with the relationship? If you knew that this wasn't changing at all, that this was never going to change, that this is it, this is your life now with this person, would you be happy moving forward? Do you think you could still have a happy life with this person? And I think maybe that's the question that you need to ask yourself, that like day to day, this ex-wife isn't that much of a bother, and it's just for family events, it's just for like these little things, and that your relationship with this person and the life that you've built with this person is worth this inconvenience. I'm not saying don't speak up for yourself, but I am saying think further. If you don't get the result that you want, you know what I mean? What are the consequences then? You know what I mean? The consequences are either you living a life like this forever, and if so, are you okay with that? If you're not okay with that, then are you ready to leave? You know, are you in a position to leave and stand on your own? Like, what options do you have? And I don't think leaving is always the option. Like, definitely you can suggest counseling and therapy and all of those wonderful things, but like, have a practical solution. See what you can do on your side of the fence to mitigate the damage of this whole scenario. So maybe go to counseling, maybe just look at your options, because like I said, your partner might not see things the way you see them, because they're not affecting him in any way, because he married this person. So he was happy spending the rest of his life with said person, and even though they chose to divorce each other, he's still spending the rest of his life with her because of the child that they have together. So the question is, will you be spending the rest of your life with her as well? That's it. Anyway, let's take a little tea break and we'll get into our petty revenge to close off the show. Give us a second. Alrighty, so let's get into our petty revenge. And the title is I Made Her Sweat for a Year. Wow, wow, wow. Alright, so I had this girlfriend years ago that was a liar, cheater, and alcoholic. She had a crappy job that didn't pay well, and she thought it was the best. When we met, I didn't have a great job, but it paid well, but it was very spotty. Anyway, she would lend me some money occasionally. I didn't even really have to ask. And I would lend her money when she was in a bind. We always paid one another back within a reasonable amount of time. It was a win-win for all involved. Then she cheated. Like a fool, I took her back and things went on as before. I was happy and so was she. Then I had an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. A job that put me in a great position with decent pay and the chance to travel. I traveled my ass off. I love this job. I love it 100% of the time, 80% of the time. To get to the skinny of the story, I paid for her to come see me at an exotic location I was assigned to, and we had a great couple of days. At the end of the trip, which I had taken a week off for, she asked if I could spot her some money, $100, which I gladly gave her. She said she would give it right back. No skin off my nuts. I trusted her. I trusted her too much. I found out that she had moved in some other guy to her house that was a complete lunatic, her son told me. Just to nip this in the bud, she had 3 weeks vacation at the time and didn't lose a penny from coming to see me. Needless to say, she didn't pay me right back. It was the first time that I actually had to ask her to repay me. After a couple of weeks, I called to see when I'm getting my money. She bulks for a couple of months and finally sends me a check. I am a petty bastard. Texted for that whole time. I get the check. She was always, and I mean always, checking her bank account. She could see at any time what she had in her bank balance, in her bank account. I never cashed the check. I tore it up the day I got it. Flash forward a year or so, and we randomly see one another at the local watering hole. She is still with the lunatic. I am hanging out with friends and I haven't physically seen her in forever. I don't even glance in her direction the entire time until she comes over to me. She asks how I'm doing and my friend group somehow disappears. We talk for maybe a minute and a half while her new boy is staring daggers. She finally asked if I cashed that check, and it came back to me. I started laughing and said no, I never cashed or intended to cash that check. She looked at me as though I had lost my mind. She was saying that it was driving her nuts all this time and was always worried about it. She asked why I never cashed it, and I said I know that it would make you insane that I never went through. She looked at me like I had lost my damn mind. She said that it drove her crazy not seeing that check go through. I said her boyfriend wanted her back and to get the hell away from me. Best handy I ever spent. Quick edit. This was about 20 years ago, and all these apps that are available today weren't really used or even around. I am not now or ever been a raging drunk. I do occasionally have a few beers, though. And that is the end of that story. I mean, not as saucy as I hoped it would be, but low-key, yeah. If you're dealing with someone like who's always worried about their bank balance and you know that if they cash that check at the wrong time, it's going to bounce and your credit, history is going to be all fucked up or whatever, I can definitely understand the anxiety of it. But the fact that she was still holding out for this thing for a year, I don't know. After a couple of months, I'd kind of be like, well, I guess he's not cashing it. You know what I mean? Or I would just get into the habit of making sure that I at least had 100 in there all the time so that whenever he wants to take it, he can take it. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't know. It doesn't seem that deep to me. But sometimes it's those little things, those little things that bring you the most joy. And that is it for this week's episode of Agony Aunt. I hope you like the little petty revenge story at the end. If not, let me know. Like, share, subscribe, do the things. Your comments will then tell me what you want. You know what I mean? Like low-key democracy vibes. Just your feedback is important so that I can grow and learn. And be more familiar with my audience, I guess. But yes, have a good day. I hope that this episode got you over the hump and now you can just slide on into the weekend, and I'll see you on our Motivation Monday post. So, goodbye.